Bom, vocês estão para ver aqui agora a entrevista da etapa técnica, né? Para uma vaga aí, salário de R$ 15.000, Java, né? E Angular, tá certo? Vocês vão ver essa entrevista internacional, né? Mas é aquilo, o projeto é internacional, mas o salário que interessa é brasileiro, né? Salário de 15 mil CLT aí, há 20 anos de experiência aí nessa área, né? Mas vamos ver como é que vai ser essa performance. Acompanha aí essa entrevista, pega a pipoquinha, se sente confortável, que essa é longa, viu? Olha, essa entrevista parece que não acaba mais. Hey,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I can hear you too.
How is it going today?
Very well. What about you?
Great. Pretty good, thanks.
That's good.
Okay, so firstly, thanks for joining this meeting. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kevin. I'm a Java software engineer, and meanwhile, I serve as a global interviewer. So today I will host this meeting. And for today's meeting, we totally including 4 parts. The first part is general background check. Second part is technical communication. The third part is coding task, and the final part is Q&A. So I will leave enough time at the end of this meeting to answer your questions. Does that sound okay?
Okay, that's great.
Oh, great. Then could you please introduce yourself? Please involve your last 2 work experience. Thanks.
Okay, well, I work as a Java developer since 2007, and currently I'm working for Disney using microservice in Java and Spring. It's a solution for showing the start and end time of programs, of shows inside the live programs of Disney Plus. Before that, I was at another project at Disney, which was in Scala and was responsible for, discovering the values of taxes to pay depending on the place where the client was, buying the product from Disney.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I think then we can move on to the next part for technical communication. Okay. So firstly, I want to know is do you have any work experience with AngularJS? Angular.
Yes. No Angular JS, just Angular. About 6 years
Angular.
in total of all the projects I worked.
Okay. Could you please share with me what Angular lifecycle hooks you have used?
Okay. In fact, in Angular, I'm not very, this theoretical part, I really don't know in deeper details. But what I did was there was a system working. Then, if I need to build something new, I create a new component and do the new screen, or if fix something on existing screens. But I miss the concepts of Angular. I'm not very aware of the theoretical part. So the hooks, I really don't know what's it. Maybe I use it,
Okay,
but I
thanks.
don't know
And only one
the
more.
concept.
Okay, thanks. So only one more question regarding Angular. Do you know what is the component of Angular?
Oh yes, the component is like a set of files that are you have the presentation layer, which is HTML. You have the CSS for styling, and you have the TypeScript file that is the behavior of that component. And the component is a part of the application. Usually, you have one component per screen. So if you have a login screen, you have the login component. Then if you have I don't know, a search component, search screen, there will be a search component for that screen, and you can have if you can have the screen and you can have multiple components inside that screen too. So you could have like a component for the search and another component for the data grid that shows the results. So it's like how can I say? It's like a part of a component of the application. So you put those different
Okay, thanks.
functionalities inside the component.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Then, do you know what is the two-way data binding of Angular?
Oh yes, this is the place where you put, for instance, if you have a table, a data grid that shows results of the search, then you specify a collection on ng data, if I'm not wrong, where you bind that part of the screen with a variable that is on your TypeScript file. So in this example, you would have a list of, like if it's a search for persons, you have a list of persons in your TypeScript file. Then Angular does the binding between the screen component and the object in memory.
Okay, thanks. Then, do you know how to handle the routing in Angular?
Oh yes, the routing is where you specify the navigation of your application. So you define which components you will be navigating when you click on some menu or something like that. So it will say like if you have a search component, when you click the search, it can open another component. Then you have a route file where you configure those, when you go from one part of the application to another.
Okay, thanks. I think then we can move on to the backend part. Can you let me know what new features released in Java 8 and Java 17?
Okay. In Java 8, we have the introduction of lambdas was one of the main new things you have there. There was the type, you don't need to specify the type then every time. So Java code, based on what you are doing the code, it could discover which was the type of that variable that you are using. The lambdas and these are the most important ones, I guess, for Java 8. And on Java 17, you have the record that is a new way of doing DTOs and entity beans. So you could specify in a easier way those classes, so you don't have to build all Java beans with attributes, gets, and sets. You just build a record, and in this record you specify the attributes, and it generates the gets and sets. Sometimes it doesn't allows you to have gets and sets. It's an immutable object, but depending on the configuration, you could have a record that has gets and sets too. I guess those are the main ones, but maybe there are other things on Java 17, but I don't remember using them in code part. Just, behind the scenes there are
Okay,
other
yeah,
changes, but
yeah, understood. Thanks. Can you share with me the difference between default and the protected access modifier?
Okay. When you have the default, you don't specify a modifier, access modifier, then your attribute or method is accessible inside the same package. And when you have protected, it is only accessible on the classes that extends that class. So they are on the hierarchy as child from your class.
Mm. Can you share with me the difference between consumer and the predicate functional interface?
This I don't know. I know that when you have a functional interface is one where you don't have the full implementation of the methods, but I don't know this of predictable.
Okay, thanks. Can you let me know the difference between future and completable future?
Okay. Well, the future is a place where you are expecting for some return of the code you are doing. So an example is if you have a code that is consuming another external API, you are expecting that that call will be done, and then there will be a return, and then is the moment where the future will be with information there. The other is what was the other? Sorry, I forgot. Future and
The other one is completable future.
okay, yeah, completable future. I never
I'm
use it.
typing into
Just
the chat.
use the future, but not in Java in Kotlin. So I don't know.
Okay, no matter. Thanks. So, can you share with me the difference between stack and heap memory in JVM?
Okay. So when you have you are calling about the stack, you have one class calling another one. You know, you build like a tree of this. So the stack memory is when you have a lot of calls in this hierarchy. So depending on your configuration or your hardware, you may be capable of calling more or less levels of this tree. And so in one time, if you don't have enough memory, it will give you a Stack Overflow error, or even if you have a code that is doing recursion, it in some point will give you a Stack Overflow because there are many calls inside another call. And the heap memory is the memory where Java stores the object. So it's the same concept. You have an amount of memory that you can use for your objects, and if you don't have enough memory, you have a heap. I forgot the name of the exception, but you have an exception saying that you don't have enough memory. So those are the difference. The stack is about the one class calling another, and the heap is the objects itself.
Okay, so suppose if we found an auto memory issue, so can you let me know how to troubleshooting the root cause in the application?
Okay. Usually, if you have out of memory, you can. There are two things. The first one could be a hardware issue. You don't have enough hardware for that application, or maybe on the cloud you could increase the amount of memory for your instance. And another one is the moment you are starting your application, you can specify an amount of memory. So you could just increase that on the virtual machine arguments. So that could solve the problem if you have enough hardware. Because I don't really remember the exact number, but Java, if you don't specify the amount of memory, it has a default value. And depending on your application, especially on monolithic applications, old applications from Java that have a lot of code inside it, maybe if you don't set up the I forgot the name of the argument, but there is an argument you pass for the JVM. Then if you don't have enough space there, it will not run. You could have memory on your system, but Java will not be using all the memory unless you set up that. So those are the things I use it to do to solve this issue.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Can you share with me the difference between hash map and concurrent hash map?
Okay, hash map and concurrent hash map. I really don't know the difference between those two hash maps. I know that a hash map you have the keys as objects, and these objects are converted into hash maps when you set it as keys. But I really don't know the concurrent and the other one, the difference between them.
Okay, thanks. Can you share with me how to use the volatile and the transient keyword in Java?
Okay. Never used those two. I know that for transient you have not a keyword but an annotation in JPA or Spring Data that is when you have an entity and you don't want to save that property on the database, but as keywords I never use it.
Okay, thanks. Can you share with me the difference between synchronized and retrend log?
Oh yeah. Well, the synchronized is when you have threads, you specify synchronized for parts of code that you want to execute like not in parallel, but you want to fork all the executions. And this other one, I don't know what is it.
Okay. So in terms of the synchronized keyword, do you know how many approach to use it into the code?
Okay. In fact, I just used that professionally. I guess I never used that. So I really don't know many things about threads and this part of Java.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Can you share with me what's your understanding of the Spring AOP? AOP means aspect-oriented programming.
Okay, I didn't work with Spring AOP yet. I has a study project with Spring Webflux once, but it's not something I did on professional life yet.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Thanks. What about? So, are you familiar with handling transaction in Spring Framework?
Okay, yeah, when I use a transaction, I just put a transactional annotation on like some part of the code, maybe that be on the REST endpoint, so the entire call will be treated as a transaction, or even on the business logic or the repository layer. So depending on the need, I could do that. And the transaction ensures that if some error occurs from the start to the end of the transaction, it will revert the changes. So, for instance, if we have a relational database and there are a lot of operations inside this transaction, if something wrong occurs, it will roll back everything. So it will not let wrong data on the database. So that's what I know and what I use it for transaction in Spring.
Then can you share with me what propagation type you know of the transaction?
Yeah, I just use it the default, so I never configured the specifications of it.
Okay, thanks. Are you familiar with using application context to publish event?
Okay, no, never used that.
Okay, no matter. Thanks. Can you share with me how to use the Swagger?
Okay, the Swagger you configure using an annotation on your API, so it generates a web page where you can do the calls for that API without having to have Postman or something like that. And you can configure it as a documentation too, so you can put a description of what your endpoint does. So you have to import the Swagger on your POM or Gradle file, the dependency, and then you use the annotations on your API endpoints.
Okay, thanks. Can you let me know the solid design principles?
Okay. The Solid is about good practices to write good code. So each letter stands for one principle. So S is for single responsibility. When each class should handle just one part of the business, a limited part. The I don't really remember what is it. The L is the list of
Open
principle.
close.
Oh, it's open close. Yeah. Sorry for that. The open close is where you have a class that is open for extension, but it's closed for changes, so you cannot change the behavior, but you can extend the behavior. The L is list of principle where a class can be replaced by a child class. A parent class can be replaced by a child class, but a child class cannot be replaced by a parent class. The I don't remember the I. And the D, I forgot the I and the D. But all the principles are about having good code that helps you to have more maintenance on your code, easier maintenance.
Yeah, thanks. Can you let me know what design patterns you often used in the code?
Okay. Design patterns, the main ones are MVC, where you separate the class of your application into different layers depending on responsibility. So you have some model classes that represents database and information that's saved. You have the view class that represents things that are on the screen or maybe not screen, but on your interface of your project. So REST endpoints goes on the view layer, and the C is where you put your business logic. So you separate your application on those layers. That's something very used on Java, and even on front end you have this concept. Another one is Singleton, where you have one instance only of that class. Spring uses that behind the scenes when you build a component or a repository by default, and Spring just create one instance of that class for you. There is another one that I don't like much is Facade Delegate. That was very common on Java legacy applications where you have a lot of interfaces and classes, and then you get a code that has a lot of not useless, but in most of the case they are useless. So you have a lot of layers in your application in Facade Delegate. So I guess those three are the main ones.
Yeah.
Okay. But there are a lot of
Okay, great.
design
Thanks.
patterns.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Can you share with me how to handle the distributed transaction in microservice architecture?
Okay. Well, usually you have when you have distribution, you have a lot of different microservices, and they are interacting usually using a queue between them. So, like you have one endpoint that receives a request and puts that on a queue, then you have another microservice that reads from that queue, does something, and put on another queue or on the database. And on this scenario, it's when I worked with this architecture, you have a transaction ID that helps you on troubleshooting the problem when you have one. So once the information is flowing through all those layers, it's a little hard to troubleshoot if you don't have a transaction ID. So you put a transaction ID at the beginning, then you can trace all the steps and find out if something goes wrong in some place. So I guess this is what I
Mm,
know about this. I currently my project has this structure, so there are some errors there and some things that are
oh,
difficult to troubleshoot. But we use this transaction
okay.
ID so you can go through the logs of different microservices and find out what's going wrong.
Okay. So then, can you elaborate on how to implement the tracing, the distributed tracing in the microservices?
Okay. So usually you have a tool of logs. Each cloud has usually you use that on the cloud. So, for instance, Amazon has I forgot the name of the tool, but it's a place where you can do a query for your logs, and then you can specify
CloudWatch, you mean?
yeah, CloudWatch, and then you can put the transaction ID and select like what service you are using. So this service has the configuration to know all the microservices that are involved in one transaction, for instance. And then once you put your transaction ID, it looks at the logs of all the those applications that are inside that context and shows you like if it was just one log file.
Okay. Yeah, then do you know how to transport the EC2 logs to the CloudWatch?
Oh no, I don't do that configuration. It is already configured. I just use the tool. I guess that the DevOps
Okay,
person
thank,
does that.
thank you. Do you know how to use Jenkins and GitLab CI?
Oh yes, I worked with both, but as a developer, so I don't build the pipelines. I just go there and execute them and take a look on the logs to see if everything is okay or not. I did some configurations of pipelines, not in Jenkins, but on Spinnacle. That is very similar. But most of the time I just use it both for Jenkins and for GitHub Actions. So it's the same. You have a place, you enter there, you throw your pipeline, it builds your code, and you take a look on logs. Sometimes it is automatic, so once I do a commit and a pull request, it
Thank,
triggers the pipeline. But
okay, thanks for sharing. Can you let me know what is the Docker Compose?
okay. Docker Compose is a file that you have for Docker, and it specifies different. There are images that you use. So you install Docker on your machine or on the cloud, and then it reads this Docker Compose file and starts those images for you. So you can have, for instance, a database that is configured there, and then Docker takes care of running it. So it makes easier to configure new environment on new developer machines and of course in the cloud too. So if you have a Kubernetes or something like that, it goes there, reads that file and like
Mm,
builds the environment for you, setups the environment.
mm, thanks. Talking about the Kubernetes, do you know the difference between service and the deployment?
Okay. Yeah, on Kubernetes, my own experience is to go there and see if the pods are running. So I don't did many things and I don't know many concepts about it. But it's like a tool that manages your Docker applications on a environment of in the cloud, not on your machine. That's how I know.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Can you let me know the difference between Mock and the Spy of Mockito?
Okay, mock is something that builds for you objects. So it's like a fake object. You can have a fake database or something like that. But the other one, I don't know. I not used that.
Okay, so please, could you please describe how to use the Mock to simulate the target object behavior?
Okay. In your test, you have an annotation. Sorry for that. You can annotate an attribute with mock. Then Mockito generates for you like a skeleton of that class. So, for instance, if you are testing the business layer, you can mock the database object. So every time your business layer calls a database, instead of really calling the database, it will call your mock. And then on each test, you configure that mock in order to return what you are expecting. So if you have a test where you need to find all the objects in database, you go there and configure it to return a list with some elements inside it, for instance. So this way you can test just your business implementation without having the database. So you can have a unit test instead of integration test, for instance.
Okay, thanks. Can you share with me what service you have used on AWS?
Okay, the EC2 is one I use it. S3 for like static files. I use SQS, that is like a Kafka for native on the cloud. I use it RDS, that is native, not native, sorry, but Amazon Relational Database Service, that you have relational database there. I use it DynamoDB, that's like a MongoDB inside the cloud. CloudWatch to look at the cloud, the logs. Datadog for looking at the performance of the application to see if something is wrong or not. Those are the main ones I use it, but always as a developer. So, for instance, on EC2, I don't go there and configure the instance, but my application runs on EC2, so I need to go there and see if they are running properly or not, you know. But those are the services I use it.
Okay, so in terms of the S3, do you know, can you let me know what storage class we can set for the S3?
Okay. Yeah, you have different configurations on S3 depending on the amount of time you will need. So if it's something you need a lot of times, you can configure it to be more available for you, but that has a higher cost. And then if it's something that you have like a backup that you only access 6 months or 1 year, you can have another configuration where it will take more time to give you the file, but you pay less for using. That's how I know. I know there are different specific configurations, but I don't know exactly but I know this concept. So you pay more if you need something to be more available, and you pay less if something you don't use very much.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Can you let me know how to create a FIFO SQS?
Okay, yeah, I really.
I mean, it's how to create a first name
Yeah, but I did. don't know that. I just use the queues that were already configured, so I didn't do the configuration.
Okay, understood. And in terms of the DynamoDB, can you let me know the difference between primary key and the sort key?
Okay, yeah, I really don't know that true, but I know that a primary key is something specific to the object that distinguishes it from others, but I don't know the other one. It's the same. I just used DynamoDB and saved the objects there, but I didn't do further things.
Oh, okay. So when you are using the CloudWatch to filter out logs, can you share with me what query patterns we can use?
Okay. Well, I use it for like when you have CloudWatch, your logs need to be configured so you can put some information like the name of the context and those things. And then for the things you specified on your logs, you can filter like if each line of the log was like a database row. So in your logs, you have the context, you have the level, you have the data when it happened, the date time, the timestamps. So you can filter for all those informations, but the custom ones, and this is the full one, that is the time and the name of the place where the application is running.
Okay, thanks. So can you let me know the difference between topic and the partition of Kafka?
Okay. Yes, I just use the topic in Kafka, and the topic is like a queue, so you can put your objects there, and then from other side you read from the topic, and that's how I know about it. I don't know deeper details about it.
Okay. Then do you know what is the consumer group of Kafka?
Okay, the consumer group is where your application listens to the queues, so you can specify different consumer groups that will consume from a queue. Sorry for that, just give me a moment. Huh?
Take your time. No hurry. No hurry.
Okay, sorry for that. So that's it. A consumer group is a place where you plug your consumers to listen for information.
Okay. Then when we are using the Kafka, how to guarantee the message delivery?
Yeah, I really don't know that. I guess that Kafka ensures that for you if you configure, there is a specific configuration do, but I don't really know exactly what is. But so if you don't have that configured, your application works like UDP. So it will be delivered, and if it's not consumers, it goes to the next one. But if you configure it, will wait to ensure that somebody consumed that information before going to the next one. But I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay. No matter that. Thanks. Can you let me know the difference between table and the view in relational database?
Okay, a table is physical, so you really have information stored on a table with the columns and the values. And the view is something like a dynamic query that you have. So you call the view, and then it behind the scene runs a query against the databases, say the tables, and then returns to you. So as a client of a database, they look the same, but behind the scenes there is this difference.
Okay. Then can you let me know the difference between union and the union all?
Okay. When you have the union, it's something you have on your query. Then, yeah, union. I also use the union all, where you just pick some query here and then you put together with all the results for another query. So I don't know the difference between the union and union all.
Okay. Then do you know how to use the execution plan in database?
No, I never used that.
It's related to the performance tuning in RDS.
Yeah, performance tuning. Yeah, but is it? I really don't. I guess I never used that. I guess that somebody once told me if you run that, you can know which parts of the query, the performance of which one. If I'm not wrong, but I didn't use it that. I know that what I'm saying to you is an explain
Okay.
query, so I don't know that.
Okay. No problem. No problem. Thanks. Can you let me know what GPA annotations you have used?
Okay, GPA annotations. We have the entity annotation. That is where you put your Java bean as an entity and then does the mapping for you. You have the column annotation where you specify each attribute of your entity class to be mapped to one table class. You have the ID annotation, that is where you specify your primary key. That can be a simple primary key with only one column, or a composed one where you need to have a specific object for that, another class. There is the join, where you specify if you have like a collection of items and you want to map them with GPA, sorry. Then inside it you have one way to configure it. So if you have a object inside another one, you can specify your fetch type. So you can do it as an eager or lazy, and in the eager it will preload all the object tree, and in the lazy it will only load if you use that property. It is used to try to boost performance, and those are the main ones I remember on the entity.
Thanks. Can you let me know what is the Spring Boot actuator?
I don't know. Don't never use it.
What about the Spring Boot starter?
No, don't know.
Are you familiar with the Spring Boot auto configuration? How is the Spring Boot auto configuration work?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, no matter. Thanks. Can you let me know how to handle exception globally in Spring Boot?
Okay, you can specify a method as an exception handler. You put that annotation on this method, and then all the exceptions that are not treated on your application will be redirected to this method, and then it will treat those. So you can use that, for instance, to have a default error return on your API, and then every time an error occurs, this method builds that for you, or you can use for logs and what you want. But if you configure an exception handler, It can be for all the exceptions or it can be for a specific one too. So it will capture the exceptions that are not captured in catches for you.
Yeah, thanks. I think then we can move on to the next part. For the coding task,
Okay.
yeah, I will share the question to you. Please wait me a moment. Okay. Can you see the question on your side?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me introduce this task. Actually, as you can see, for this task, it contains 3 sub-questions. And all of them, you need to use Java Streaming API to solve it. Meanwhile, the method name already defined from line number 60 to line number 62. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you will see there are 3 line number what I highlighted. Okay, your responsibility is implement these 3 methods and return the expected value. You totally have 15 minutes to complete it. Okay. Take your time.
So
Thanks.
I need to implement calculation average score, find students below average, and find top student, right? Okay, so let's do it.
Yes, right.
I'll have a private. Should take the student list. Students, so okay. So here it should be a list for students. So for each guy on this list, I will have let me just take a look on this object. It's a double. I'll have a double score. Okay. So sum score. I will accumulate the values on this double here. Okay, so student.get score. So we'll have sum score equals sum score dot add. I will add this guy here, and then at the end I will return sum score. I guess I can do this way. Student list students dot size. Okay, so I will do this to calculate the average. Then the next one is to find below the average. So it will be something similar to this. This will return, of course, a double, right? It's asking for not an object, but on the double. Okay. So the next one is a string. So I guess it will return the name, right, of the guys. So okay, find students below the average is the name of the method. It receives the list and the average. Okay. Then here I will have it's list of string, right? Not a string, it's a list of string. Okay. It's the return. Names, Benil Arreilist. Okay, so for each student, I will get the score. If student dot get score, this is a double. Compare to average score. So it is below. Below, so this returns 0, 1, or -1, depending on the comparison. So if this is lower, then I will names.add students.get name. Okay, and then I will return the names. And the last one is find top student. Okay, so it's something similar to this. And it returns what? It returns a student. Okay, and the name of the method is find top students. Then the list, then I have top score. Okay, then I have an if here. If student dot get score, got that score compared to top score. So if the score is higher than the top score, then the new student top student. So top student will be the student. And then I will return the top student. So those are the three methods implemented here. Maybe there is something wrong, but this is the general idea.
Okay, so can you try to use the streaming API to do the subtask too? Are you familiar with that streaming API?
Streaming API. I never used Streaming API, I guess. Java Streaming API.
Oh, okay. No matter. Thanks. Let me give you another coding task. Give me a second.
Okay.
Please wait a second. Okay. So actually, for this task, it's a SQL task, and you need to write two SQL to meet these two questions, and you have 6 to 7 minutes completed. Take your time.
Okay. So for the first one will be select selection name, departed name from okay, so employees in there, join departments on. I'll call employees E, departments D on E dot department ID equal D dot department ID. Okay, so this first one finds the name and department name. Okay. The second one is harder. So you have the select department name from. Then I will have a subquery here. And then I will have select department name from. Then no, sorry, not that. I will I will have the department name. Okay. Here I will have the department ID from the employee table. Order by salary desk, so it will pick the higher first. And okay, so I will have a fetch first row only. It depends on the database we are using, but for, I guess, DB2 is this way. And if you have like Oracle, you have query. Yeah, let's assume it's Oracle. Order by fetch first row only. This is like for DB2, but you have different ways to specify that depending on the database. And with this, it will only get one line. So it will get it from here, inner join, department on, I will call this as, I don't know, J dot department ID equal department D. Not call J, I'll call it E because it is an employee. So is the dot department ID. So that is, so the idea is I have this subquery to get the higher salary, just one line, and then I do the join with the department table to get the department name.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the solution. Thank you so much. Okay. Then my next question is, can you share with me what ceremony, what daily meetings have in your Scrum team?
Okay, the daily meeting is a meeting that should have about 1/4 of hour daily, and is a place where you say what you did yesterday, what you will be doing today, and the main reason is if to tell if you have a blocker or something on the way, so people can know how to help you, or if they don't know how to help you, they can call someone that can help you find it, how to solve it. So the main goal of the daily meeting is to find out who is with something that is not allowing here to go ahead on the task, and then after that meeting try to solve that. And sometimes that is used by the manager to track the progress of the tasks too.
Okay, thanks. My last question is, can you share with me what production issue you faced recently, and how did you resolve it?
Okay. On this project, we had a situation. It is application that shows you the time of the start and the end of the shows in a live channel. So if your show is a soccer match, for instance, sometimes if the soccer match is drawn, then you have to need penalties. It's something to decide who won that match. That makes that match takes longer to end. So you have to adjust the end time of that current match you are watching on your channel, and set the start of the next show to be later. So there was a problem that this solution is a distributed microservice solution, because there are many channels, many locations, many shows happening at the same time. So there was this bug, and that was a teamwork. We had to troubleshoot and to discover what was going wrong. That was not easy to fix, but it was on production. We were not capable of reproducing that issue locally or even on the test environment. So we had to go taking looking logs and deploying, making fix on the code and deploying and seeing if that got fixed. That was something particular because it was not something really critical. Because if there was an error, it was not something that would break the transmission. Only the information on the scheduler would be wrong, but that was not something big, and that was not something that happens much times. So we were trying those solutions. We have a couple of different approaches, and finally we could find out what was wrong. It was because it was assuming that one show was ending and the other one was starting at the same time, but sometimes because of the error, it was getting the order wrong. So it was thinking that the show that goes later was the show before. So we had, once we fixed that, then it started work. But there was a lot of working, troubleshooting, take a look on logs, and it was very challenging, but we could fix at the end. But there were
Okay,
a lot
yes, thanks
of
for sharing.
developers involved.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Great.
Okay. I think, to be honest, for my side, I don't have any further questions. Do you have any questions to me?
Okay. I don't think so, because in the previous interview, I was told that for this one is more general, right? So from this result, you will find like the specific positions that I could be a fit, and then I will have specific interviews, right? So that's it from my side.
Okay, so honestly, I'm not quite sure whether this interview is a specific role interview or is a general interview, because I'm only focused on the technical interview. But I suggest you can ask a recruiter. They can give you a concrete answer regarding that.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
No, just this.
Yeah, thanks. So if you don't have any more questions, I think we can close this meeting. Really appreciate sharing your knowledge and personal experience to me. Have a great day.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
you too. Have a good one. Bye. Isso aí, galera. Foi uma entrevista muito cansativa, muito longa, perguntas muito difíceis, né? O rapaz que me entrevistou ali, ele parecia ser asiático. Os asiáticos, eles pegam muito pesado, tanto os asiáticos quanto os indianos. Meu Deus do céu. Muita questão teórica. Eu tenho esse problema mesmo de... Bom, é sempre aquela mesma história, né? É difícil, mano, você lembrar da teoria, né? Você não usa muitas coisas ali. Tinha duas coisas. Tinha coisas teóricas que eu não lembrava. Tinha coisas que, de fato, eu nunca usei, cara. 20 anos trabalhando com essas paradas. Já trabalhei em um monte de empresa, um monte de projeto. Tem coisa ali que eu nunca usei, sinceramente. E aí entra nessa parte, né? Eu sou uma pessoa que eu prezo muito pelo meu tempo, tá ligado? E a minha energia mental já tá esgotada. Acabei essa reunião aqui, pra mim eu deitava ali
e acabou meu dia, entendeu? É bem cansativo, foi muito cansativo essa reunião, 1 hora, né? Entrevista durante 1 hora. E foi a primeira coisa que eu fiz no dia também. Já tava com sono e tudo mais. Então, cara, terrível, revira o estômago, é cansativo, um monte de pergunta que você não sabe. Em um outro idioma também, o sotaque do rapaz não era tão fácil de entender. Eu até habilitei as legendas ali para ficar mais fácil, mas não dava para entender, né? E bem, fica nesse ponto, né? Porque o meu tempo de vida, né? Esse que é o ponto todo para você refletir um pouco, né? Veja, tudo isso aqui é o quê? É para obter dinheiro, né? A gente estuda, a gente trabalha para obter dinheiro. E aí, para usufruir desse dinheiro, das coisas que você compra com ele e tudo mais, você precisa de tempo e energia também. Então, qual que é o ponto que eu quero chegar aqui? Por que que eu tenho essa coisa com a teoria? Porque a teoria, eu quero, se eu pudesse, eu queria saber só o que eu vou usar. Tá entendendo? De repente, se eu vou usar uma coisa, eu aprendo ali na hora, né? Depois eu não uso mais, eu esqueço. Então, você tá entendendo? Agora, você saber esse grau de informações pressupõe um gasto de tempo e energia além do seu trabalho. Quer dizer, além de trabalhar, você ainda vai ficar no seu tempo livre estudando para saber essas coisas. Então, cara, não dá, a vida vai se resumir a trabalho, né? E dentro do tranquilismo a gente tem isso. Você tem 20% do conhecimento que resolve 80% dos problemas. É isso que eu quero. É isso que eu foco. Agora, os 80% de conhecimento que vai resolver 20% do problema é contraprodutivo. Não adianta. Então, eu não sei essas coisas mesmo. Né? Não que eu me frustre, mas por que me frustro? Porque não se usa essas paradas no dia a dia. Então, para que ter isso, né? A minha ideia é assim, dado que a escassez de tempo e energia que a gente tem para ganhar dinheiro e usufruir do dinheiro é muito mais importante que ganhar o dinheiro, tudo bem, você vai perder oportunidades, você vai ter coisa que você não vai saber e tudo bem, não tem problema. Agora, o problema é, não usa. Então, para que ficar focando em coisas que não se usam? Para que ter essas teorias, essas coisas todas, se você pode ir direto para a prática, né? Então, essa é a minha bronca, né, com a vida profissional geral. Tipo assim, eu não tenho tempo para perder e energia mental para aprender coisa. Veja só, eu trabalhei e ganhei dinheiro. E esse dinheiro está aqui para usufruir. Comprei carro, moro em lugar bom, tenho dinheiro para viajar, não sei o quê. E aí eu vou gastar esse tempo para estudar outras coisas em vez de aproveitar. E esse estudo só serve para fazer mais dinheiro, você está entendendo? Então, é esse ponto. Se a gente tiver processos mais práticos, mais voltados a coisas reais do dia a dia, pronto, a gente vai salvar uma parcela da nossa vida que a gente está jogando fora. Que essa que é a verdade. Minha mágoa toda com o sistema de ensino é isso. Eu ficava lá estudando um monte de porcaria que eu não usei para nada aquilo lá. Diferente de hoje, né? Hoje com a ADS aí, tô fazendo na FIAP lá, é muito mais prático. Por isso que eu recomendo as pessoas fazerem a ADS, que a ADS que interessa. Agora essas coisas teóricas da computação, thread, mano, quem vai programar thread no Java? É muito raro isso, 20 anos, quase nunca usei isso aí uma vez só, em 20 anos. Então, não compensa, entra naqueles 80% de conhecimento que é inútil. Então 80% do seu tempo você corta aquilo ali fora e fica só com esses 20%, você resolve 80% dos problemas e acabou. Aí você sobra tempo para você aproveitar a vida. É o único objetivo dessa porra toda. É ganhar dinheiro e ter uma vida melhor, né? Então foi cansativo, foi triste, eu tava de saco cheio do meu estômago aqui. Mas é isso, a gente nasce pobre. Tem que trabalhar, eu vou falar pra você. Nossa senhora, entrevistinha difícil, né? Vamos ver aí se vai ter mais etapas, se não vai ter, mas é muito complicado, é muita teoria para coisa que você teria que viver só em função disso, entendeu? Eu não sou um profissional vocacionado, eu não sou um padre, tá ligado? Eu vou abrir mão de toda a vida para me dedicar a um negócio. Não, eu só quero fazer dinheiro, velho, é só isso. O dinheiro ali, quanto menos tempo, menos energia eu gastar, melhor, porque não interessa, é depois que eu ganhei o dinheiro, eu vou gastar o dinheiro. Só tô nessa por causa disso. Vida profissional para mim é só isso. Eu não tenho um chamado, uma missão, dizer, não, eu só quero ganhar meu dinheirinho aqui e gastar. Basicamente é isso. Então essa foi a entrevista aí, né? Sai de 15 mil CLT, né, vaga consultoria internacional. Eles falaram que dependendo da performance nessa entrevista aqui, eles vão ver vagas, né, que eles vão mandar e salários e tudo mais, né. Então, foi isso. Obrigado por assistir aqui mais esse vídeo de entrevista no canal Jovem Tranquilão. Em breve teremos mais entrevistas aí.